Thomas ambled through the bustling spaceport city, his usual route to the small marketplace where he bought his daily necessities. As he passed an alleyway, he noticed a flicker of movement in the shadows. Curiosity piqued, he peered in and saw a small, frail figure huddled against the cold, metallic wall. "Hello there?" Thomas called out gently, not wanting to startle whoever was hiding. The figure flinched but didn't move. Taking a step closer, he saw it was a young alien girl, her skin a soft shade of blue, with large, expressive eyes that looked up at him in fear. "Are you hungry?" he asked, holding out a piece of bread he had just bought. The girl's eyes widened, and she hesitantly reached out, snatching the bread and devouring it quickly. Thomas smiled warmly. "Come with me. I can give you more food and a place to stay." She seemed unsure, but hunger and desperation won over fear. Slowly, she got up and followed Thomas to his modest home. Inside, he offered her more food and a warm blanket. As she ate, he tried to ask her questions, but she remained silent, her eyes wary. Thomas decided to let her be for now. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said kindly. "I'm Thomas, by the way. What's your name?" The girl looked at him for a long moment before whispering, "Lila." "Nice to meet you, Lila," Thomas replied with a gentle smile. "Rest now. We'll figure things out together." As days turned into weeks, Lila slowly started to trust Thomas. She had been through a lot, orphaned by a war that had ravaged her home planet. She had somehow ended up alone on this strange planet. Thomas, a retired engineer with a heart of gold, found himself growing fond of the little alien girl. He was determined to give her the care and safety she desperately needed. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Thomas noticed Lila looking more relaxed than before. "Would you like to hear a story?" he asked, hoping to further ease her fears. Lila nodded, her eyes curious. Thomas began to tell her stories of his younger days, of adventures and mishaps, and Lila listened intently. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart started to crumble. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. Thomas knew that integrating Lila into his life and the community would be a challenge, but he was ready for it. He had found a new purpose in caring for her, and in return, Lila found a glimmer of hope in her otherwise bleak world. Together they began to navigate their new reality, forming a bond that neither had expected, but both desperately needed. Thomas woke up early each morning to the sound of birds chirping outside his window. He would quietly make breakfast, careful not to wake Lila, who still slept fitfully on the couch. One morning, as he prepared pancakes, he heard soft footsteps behind him. "Good morning, Lila," he said without turning around. "Good morning," she replied, her voice still a bit hesitant. She watched him for a moment before asking, "Can I help?" Thomas turned, smiling at her. "Of course. How about you mix the batter?" Lila nodded and stepped forward, eager to help. As they worked together, Thomas found himself talking to her about simple things. How to mix the batter just right, the secret to flipping the perfect pancake, and little stories from his past. Over time, Lila started to open up. She told him about her parents, about the war that had taken them away, and how she had ended up alone in the spaceport city. Her eyes were filled with sadness, but also a spark of hope as she spoke. One afternoon, Thomas took Lila to the local market. She clung to his side, wary of the bustling crowds. As they walked, Thomas introduced her to some of the vendors he knew. Most were kind, smiling at the shy alien girl, but a few gave them suspicious looks. Back at home, Thomas and Lila continued to bond. He taught her how to repair small gadgets, a skill he had mastered during his years as an engineer. Lila proved to be a quick learner, her nimble fingers adept at handling the delicate components. Their evenings were spent talking. Lila began to share more about her home planet, describing the vibrant forests and the towering mountains. Thomas listened intently, fascinated by her stories. One night, as they sat by the fireplace, Lila looked at Thomas and asked, "Why are you helping me?" Thomas smiled warmly. "Because everyone deserves a chance, Lila, and I can see you're a good person who's been through a lot. You deserve a safe and happy life." Lila's eyes welled up with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. "Thank you, Thomas. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You don't have to worry about that," Thomas replied softly. "We're in this together." As the weeks turned into months, their bond grew stronger. Lila started to smile more, her laughter becoming a common sound in Thomas's home. She even began to make friends with some of the local children, though she still faced prejudice from some of the adults. Thomas and Lila knew that their journey was far from over. There were still many challenges to face, but with each passing day, they grew more confident in their ability to overcome them. Together, they were slowly building a new life, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. One sunny afternoon, Thomas and Lila were walking back from the market, their bags filled with fresh produce and small trinkets. As they neared their home, they heard hushed whispers and saw a group of neighbors gathered eyeing them warily. Thomas sighed, knowing what was coming. Ever since Lila had arrived, some of the neighbors had been less than welcoming. Today seemed to be no exception. "Thomas," called out Mrs. Henderson, a stern woman in her late 50s. "A word, please?" Thomas approached the group, Lila staying close behind him. "Yes, Mrs. Henderson?" Mrs. Henderson frowned, her eyes darting to Lila. "We've been discussing your new house guest. Many of us are concerned. This isn't the place for outsiders." Thomas's expression hardened. "Lila is not an outsider. She's part of my family now." Another neighbor, Mr. Davies, spoke up. "We don't know anything about her kind. What if she's dangerous?" Lila's eyes filled with tears, but she stood her ground, her small frame trembling. Thomas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Lila is just a child. She's been through enough without having to deal with this kind of prejudice." "We're just looking out for our community," Mrs. Henderson insisted. Thomas shook his head. "If looking out for the community means turning away those in need, then perhaps it's time we reconsidered what kind of community we want to be." With that, Thomas led Lila away, ignoring the murmurs behind them. Back home, he hugged Lila tightly. "Don't let them get to you, Lila. You belong here, with me." Lila nodded, wiping her tears. "Thank you, Thomas. I won't let them scare me." Determined to integrate Lila into the community, Thomas decided to host a neighborhood gathering. He spent days preparing, cooking food, and decorating the house. On the day of the event, Lila helped, her nervous excitement evident. As neighbors arrived, Thomas welcomed them warmly. Some were still skeptical, but many were curious and open-minded. Throughout the evening, Thomas introduced Lila to everyone, highlighting her talents and sharing her story. Slowly, the initial tension began to fade. Lila, although shy at first, started to engage with the other children, showing them how to fix small gadgets. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and soon, laughter filled the room. By the end of the night, even the more reluctant neighbors had softened. Mrs. Henderson approached Thomas and Lila, her expression less severe. "Thomas, I must admit you were right. Lila is quite remarkable." Thomas smiled, placing a hand on Lila's shoulder. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I appreciate your willingness to give her a chance." As the neighbors left, Lila turned to Thomas, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I never thought they'd accept me. Thank you for believing in me." Thomas hugged her. "You don't have to thank me, Lila. You've earned their respect by being yourself. I'm proud of you." Their bond, stronger than ever, Thomas and Lila continued to face challenges together. They knew that prejudice wouldn't disappear overnight, but they were ready to fight for acceptance and understanding. Together, they had taken the first steps towards building a more inclusive community. The seasons changed, and with them, Lila's confidence grew. She was no longer the scared, starving girl Thomas had found. Now, she was a vibrant part of the community, her presence a testament to the power of kindness and perseverance. One crisp autumn morning, Thomas and Lila stood in front of their home, which now doubled as a small workshop and community center. Together, they had transformed it into a place where anyone, human or alien, could find help and support. Today, they were preparing for a special event, the grand opening of their new initiative to aid alien refugees. Thomas had spent months gathering resources and reaching out to organizations, while Lila had worked tirelessly alongside him, her passion and dedication inspiring everyone around her. As people began to arrive, Thomas and Lila greeted them warmly. The air was filled with excitement and anticipation. Representatives from various aid organizations, local officials, and many community members had come to show their support. Thomas took the stage first, addressing the crowd. "Thank you all for being here. When I found Lila, I knew she was special. What I didn't realize was how much she would change my life and this community. Together, we've built something amazing, a place where everyone is welcome." He turned to Lila, who stepped forward, her eyes shining with determination. "I used to be scared and alone," she began, her voice strong. "But Thomas gave me a chance. He showed me kindness when no one else would. Now we want to extend that kindness to others who need it." The crowd erupted in applause, moved by Lila's words. As the event continued, people mingled, sharing stories and ideas. Thomas watched with pride as Lila interacted with the guests, her warmth and charisma drawing everyone in. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Thomas and Lila sat together on the porch, watching the sunset. "We did it," Lila said softly, a content smile on her face. Thomas nodded, his heart full. "Yes, we did. And this is just the beginning." Over the following months, their initiative flourished. They provided food, shelter, and education to alien refugees, helping them integrate into the community. Lila, now a beacon of hope, inspired others to volunteer and support their cause. One day, as they were working in the workshop, a young alien girl approached them, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Thomas and Lila exchanged a knowing glance, their hearts going out to her. "Hello," Thomas said gently, kneeling down to the girl's level. "I'm Thomas, and this is Lila. You're safe here." The girl hesitated, then whispered, "I'm Zara." Lila stepped forward, her voice soothing. "Welcome, Zara. We're here to help. Come with us and we'll take care of you." As they led Zara inside, Thomas couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. He saw so much of Lila in Zara, the fear, the resilience, and the spark of hope. He knew that with their help, Zara would find her place, just as Lila had. In the years that followed, their home continued to be a sanctuary for those in need. Thomas and Lila's bond only grew stronger, their lives intertwined by the shared mission of spreading kindness and hope. Together, they had created a legacy of love and acceptance, proving that no matter where you come from or what you've been through, everyone deserves a chance to belong. And in the heart of the bustling spaceport city, their home remained a shining beacon of that belief, lighting the way for all who sought it. Subscribe to watch more amazing sci-fi stories.